If you watch my channel, you know I'm a big fan of discs, of physical media, especially of the boutique, of the boutique labels. Boutique, I like that. I think they're great, right? Okay, so you build up a relationship with these companies. When you're buying consistently from them, you roughly know what you're going to get. If you're buying a Criterion movie, you know the kind of thing you're going to get. Arrow Video, again, you have a rough idea of what you're going to get. I really like being able to go with these companies and understanding the type of things that I'm going to get when I buy from them. And like I said, you build up that respect with these companies, with the titles that they have. You understand what they're releasing, you become fans of them, and then they start to build up that reputation within your mind, within other collectors. You know, you're a completionist for Masters of Cinema or Indicator or something like that. You love all their movies. At which point do you become fanatical? At which point do you go from being a fan of a label to being fanatical, of buying everything, of being having an idea that they do nothing wrong, that they can do no wrong? These labels have reputations among film fans because they give that extra care and put extra effort into their discs and what they're releasing, and we love it because of that. But every now and then they must release something that just doesn't quite land with us film fans. Do you give it a bump? Does it get a pass because it is from a certain label? Do we prize these labels more than the actual movies? That's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. The boutique bump, the way that a movie that you may have been able to get on standard Blu-ray, you've never picked up, you've had no interest to it, boom, it's on Criterion, I must have that in my collection. Why do we think this way? Why, as film fans, as physical media collectors, why do we look at things from a certain label as being more cherished and better than a standard studio release disc? It's the same movie. Some of the transfers are just as good as others, but for some reason we covet one and not the other as much. We may change or move up. I mean, one of the most recent ones I can think of was the RoboCop release. The Blu-ray for that was perfect. It was really good. It was an awesome transfer. The Arrow edition came out and I instantly bought that. Did I need to get it? No. I like the packaging, I like the extras and things like that. But there's other movies that I have in my collection that I've picked up simply because they're a label release. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I'm leaning towards it's probably a bad thing in certain aspects. There are certain movies that I've picked up that I wasn't really interested in, that I purposely bought because it was a cheap label release. You know, sales or cut prices or looking on forums where everybody talks about great deals is a terrifying prospect, because you jump on things simply because they're from a label. And I feel like as more as I go into my collection, I love the labels and I'm starting to resent certain aspects of them at the same time, probably resenting more aspects of myself because I feel so anchored to some of them in an effective way that really causes me a little bit of anxiety along the journey of being a physical media collector. I've picked up movies from Arrow, from other labels, just because they are part of that label. You guys have probably done it the same. If you're anything like me, or the way I used to be, you pick up movies, you throw them on the shelf, you're happy to have it, and then you can go, my Arrow Video, I'm picking on Arrow for some reason in this video, my Arrow Video collection is 200 movies. I'm sure I'm only interested in 150, but I've got 200. It's making me wonder about that boutique bump. Yes, they give a little bit of extra care, but if it's a movie you're not interested in, do you really need it? That purposeful backing of a company, the buying into their rhetoric and what they produce, even sometimes those labels kind of confuse things themselves. Take Criterion. You think of a Criterion movie, you think of the range of films that they've had, over 1,000 releases thus far on in their label, and you have an idea of what these movies are kind of like. But every now and again you get something like The Rock and Armageddon that eke through and become part of that range, but they kind of stand out from the rest of those movies. Now, I'm not saying that The Rock and Armageddon are bad movies, I enjoy them, but do they belong in the Criterion collection? It's the same thing from Masters of Cinema. Masters of Cinema for me are movies that are a little bit older, that have garnered a reputation that deserve to be in there. I don't think anything fairly recent should be included in that until it's had a good amount of time to really be reflected on and checked out the idea on. But you have Simon Killer, you have Computer Chess, two recent releases that were thrust into the Masters of Cinema collection. Are they part of that? Do they belong there? I don't think they do, but they're in my collection because they're numbered and part of it, and we've talked about my neuroses about numbered collections before. It just seems like one of these things that I struggle with a little bit. You know, the overpraising of certain labels rather than the movie itself. And as a film fan and as a physical media fan, I'm torn. I'm struggling with my own thoughts on that. I like these videos because I get to just spill whatever in my brain out in front of the camera and talk about it, because I love the packaging. I love the extras. The supplementals are great. The booklets are wonderful. But first and foremost, and always should be first and foremost, is the movie. But I feel as if we're moving away from that a little bit. We're focusing more on things that come with it rather than just the film itself. How many times have you looked at it and thought, that film sounds okay, I might be interested, but it's got 5 documentaries, it's got 3 commentaries, it's got a book. I mean, I may never use any of these, but wow, isn't that amazing? Is it? Is it the boutique bump? Is it this thing where we put a little bit of prestige on something just because it's from a certain label? I know I'm guilty of this. I can see it within my collection. There's not many, but there is a few titles that jump out to me as things that just don't belong in my collection. There are certain things that I am tied to psychologically that I just can't break free from. Numbered collections. Look at Indicator, there's maybe 5 or 6 titles I am never going to go back to. I know that, I just didn't like them, but I can't get rid of them because they're in there. They're part of that company, that aesthetic, the look on the shelf, the idea behind it. Even though it's movies I don't like, they get that boutique bump. They be in there because they offer a little bit more relevance than a standard disc because they're from a certain company. Oh man, the frustration I get from just silly things like this that spin over in my head. I think the boutique bump is real. I think we put more relevance on a boutique film than a standard disc. I know we do. I know as collectors a lot of us do this, and you've got to wonder at the same time, you're paying a premium rate for this. I got the back to Robocop, back to Arrow Video again. I picked up the Robocop trilogy, the 3 movies for £5 ages ago. Like I said, the first one was terrific. I picked up the limited edition set of Robocop for £18, I think it was. Never looked at the booklet, never looked at any of the extras. Threw the disc on and watched it once. It's a movie I'm going to go back to, but why wasn't I comfortable sticking with that other one that I had? Why did I need to get the Arrow version? I'd love to know if you have any ideas about this. What's the kind of compulsion behind these boutique labels that make them oh so desirable that we want them, that make them have that boutique bump, that bump in our collection that puts them above the other releases? I know it's going to be the extras in some of them, but I want to know, how often do you check out the booklets, the extra material, the commentaries? Let me know. And reversible covers, a question about that as well. Do you often change reversible covers? It's something I've done only a handful of times, but it's something that appeals to me, having that choice. Thanks for letting me ramble. Thanks for listening. I hope I've struck a chord, and I can't wait to read your comments. Let them in the comment box below, and I'll see you next time on Man v Film.